There's a context slide for this motion. You are an angel of God who had been stationed on earth since the beginning of everything after the Apple of Eden incident. You had been sent to help to give guidance to human and fall in love with humanity in the process. You love every interaction that you made with human and other worldly things like food and humans' musics. One day, you had information with an absolute truth that the Antichrist will soon to be born and will start the Armageddon. Take pictures and screenshots. Right, next context slide. You believe that God has an ineffable plan with humanity that are divine as God's will. That literally means God move in a mysterious ways and believe that Armageddon might not be part of the God's plan, although the whole heaven hierarchy believe otherwise. Based on this belief, you know that you had a 50-50 chance of succeed if you want to stop the Armageddon. Although both succeed and failing had unknown outlook of the outcome for either you or the humanities.
Kak,
Yes,
what does ineffable mean?
ineffable means that there are no grand plan of God. That God basically doesn't exactly have plan for humanities. That they just exist because intinya kayak there are no an absolute outcome of what does God want with humanities in the end of that. Jadi kayak human exist for the sake of existing.
Okay, thank you, Kak.
Question.
Yes.
Does this happen in our world or is this alternate?
Uh, this is only the things that are in context slide are bersifat so okay, so this is happened in alternate universe, but the rest of the things like how does Armageddon works and what does it means, for example, what are consists of heaven hierarchy are still exist within the addition of the context slides of the information. So anything that are not contradictions to the context slide are canonically happen in our world. So the context slide is the exception on what actually happened in the status quo. All right, there are no more questions. Going once, going twice. Okay, so the motions. The motions that as the angel, this house would actively try to stop the Armageddon. The time right now is 10:56. The case building 15 minutes start from now. The case building time will end at exactly 11:11. All right, first I'm going to do a quick roll call.
I'm sorry, whip of government did not consent.
All right, since the case building time is over, I would like to do a quick roll call for the teams and also for the judges, which is all present.
Yes, except that Ms.
Uh,
Devi Fadi.
Opening opposition,
Present.
closing government,
Present.
closing opposition, closing opposition is here ya. Tadi udah, oke. Okay. For the edge, roll call, Audrina. Audrina's here. Iza,
Here.
Ramade,
Here.
Randy.
Hadir.
All right, cool. Everyone is already here. Okay, welcome to the grand final run of Smatco 2020. With the motions of the day says as follow as the angel, this house would actively try to stop the Armageddon. Okay, without further ado, let's call upon the Prime Minister here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Hmm, wait, yeah. Okay, I'm going to start my speech. If you want to POI, just unmute yourself. Ya, itulah pokoknya. Udah bisa bahasa Inggris. Okay. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think that this debate is very simple. Is that I think this is a personal dilemma for you as an angel, whether or not you try to not betray your angel and just gain your happiness to your heaven kingdom and all the friends in heaven, or you can actually defend the humanities regardless of the outcome. At least you actually gaining your happiness from the human in itself, right? What is the sense of opening government? We will actively try to stop Armageddon. How do we do this? Either preventing Devi the Antichrist to be born, or make the meteor become meteor, for example. We will actively try to stop Armageddon as much as we can to prevent that to happen. Like, we don't care whether the Armageddon is successful to be prevented. I don't think that this is debate. I don't think this is debate, right? Because I think the context that already proved to you on how even when you try to stop the Armageddon, we don't know apakah we don't know whether the Armageddon is going to be successfully prevented, right? If it's prevented, then Alhamdulillah. If it is actually not prevented, or if it's actually failed to be prevented, at least you are not dying in vain and not just to ignore the things that we love so dearly and the things that we think that we belong to, right? We as an angel, we are okay to be framed, to defy the destiny and betray the whole heaven kingdom. We are okay to be banished like Lucifer and become Deficerius and become human instead, as long as we stay with them in the end of the day, right? Two burdens that opening governments will going to fulfill on how we are going to which sense of belonging that we think that which the contextualization of which sense of belonging that this angel is belonging to. Is it actually the heaven kingdom and God, or is it actually the humanities in the end of the day? But secondly, we're also going to prove to you how harmful it is, how harmful the how we are going to be hurt the angel will be if he choose to betray the humanities. Right? So three things. Number one, on the principle, why fighting for the things that we love is okay. Secondly, how fighting for humanity is something that is noble by God's standard. Thirdly, how we don't want to be seen as a complicit toward the things that we inflicted upon the humanities, but also to ourselves, right? So first things, why by principle level, why fighting for the things that we love is okay to begin with. Look, I think that the context already proven to you on how even that you as an angel are being stationed to the earth by a long time, to the extent that to the extent that this angel fall in love with the humanities in the end of the day, right? You already stationed in the earth for centuries, that you experience several generation of music like EDM, TikTok, and whatnot. This is exactly God's fault in the first place. Is that the you as an angel are created just to be stationed on the earth, right? I don't think God can blame you if you fall in love with the humanities, because you already like stationed in them for a long time. What do you expect? Hate them? I don't think this is a debating community where you stay them for a long time and you hate them and you know resent them the most, right? I think that exactly Stockholm syndrome happens, and I don't think God can blame you for that. But secondly, is that I think that our love to the humanities is actually justified anyway, because God and heaven kingdom uh can blame us if we defy the heaven kingdom and get and choose to side with the humanities. Look, I think that is already being preceded that, for example, on how when Lucifer want to kill God in the past, angel also declare war to Lucifer, right? How this is happening? Because angel is exactly love to the God, because angel is already have a sense of belonging toward the heaven kingdom, and because they stay in heaven for a long time and see God interact every day. God, sniffing flowers and smoking weed every day, right? So and they don't want heaven to be abolished in the end of the day, right? I think that this already proves to you on how if you fighting for the if you're fighting for something that you love, I think heaven kingdom and God already do this kind of sin in the very first place. So I don't think God will actually blame you for that. But secondly, is that I think which sense of belonging that this kind of how what is the context of sense of belonging that this kind of angel already have in the end of the day, right? Because I think oppositions of the house, you will see oppositions of the house harm is reliant that angel have this kind of sense of belonging toward the heaven kingdom, that if you be that betraying heaven kingdom is much more harmful rather than betraying the humanities, right? So I think that is the context is a sense of belonging. And we say that angel does not have sense of belonging to the heaven kingdom anyway, because the connection that because number one, this angel is already being stationed for to the earth for a long time, means that the airtime that this angel has in earth is much more than this angel
That
have
point.
airtime in the heaven kingdom. No, thank you. I think that the only connections between angel and other angel in heaven kingdom is the creation of is that they are being created by God, which I think human beings is also created by God. Devi is also being created by God. Does that mean that you actually need to defend heaven and whatnot, right? So I think that angel, because the airtime of this angel station in earth for a long time, I think it's much more defendable if this angel is defending the humanities. But secondly, why fighting for humanity is something that's noble by God's standard. This is going to prove to you how why when you try to stop the Armageddon, this angel will not going to be punished anyway. Because I think this is precedented by Jesus on how he died for human sins. Like I think this narrative is already so overused by the Christian. Means that when Jesus died for human sins, Jesus falls in love with human that is so blind that he wants to erase every sins that human has. Right? Means that when Jesus already is being so blind to this, and this is already and God is already complicit to that, because God also agrees to that. That's why they put it in the Bible. Means that human is perceived as being as a being that actually God and his children's love anyway. Right? Notice that knowing this is God's will does not mean it's actually proven that God hates humanity, right? Because knowing that the proof already proved to you on how God is actually love humanity in the end of the day, but just this is some external problem that God cannot fix, and angel can actually intervene anyway. So I think this is something that proves to you why this is not actually that harmful, because when you choose to defend the humanity, the punishment will not going to be that bad. God will actually going to understand why you choose to do this, and this is something that and that is why I don't think the harm will going to exist in the house. But what is the harm when you not try to stop the Armageddon, right? Notice that in the set the house, when you not try to stop the Armageddon will successfully happens because no one intervenes Antichrist, defeat the Antichrist to be born, right? We don't think that we want to be seen as complicit, because I think that when the Armageddon is truly happens and the humanities that and the human being that you love is actually dies, but in front of your eyes, you're going to have eternal regret because you choose to betray and ignore the things that you love, right? You're going to hurt yourself over and over with the what if situation. What if I actually prevent this kind of thing? Oh, what if when you actually being bored with the angels, you're going to think, what if I actually choose to side with the humans? Is much more fun. I want to listen to Ed Sheeran all the time, right? But notice that the harm is so detrimental because you are not a human being where you when you actually feel this kind of suffering, you can die or you can suicide and whatnot. You are an eternal being, means that you as an eternal being you cannot die. So therefore the regret that you inflict upon yourself when you betray this, and the what if situation that you're going to experience is going to be eternity, means that you're going to suffer for eternity. And I don't think that this is something that within the interest of the angel, and that is why fought for Devi to be imposter.
All right, thank you for opening the debate. Now let's call to start the debate as a whole. Let's call upon the leader of opposition. Here.
Hello, I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think all sides should agree that the fact that God even wants Armageddon proves that he is tyrant, and therefore this pattern of tyrant needs to be stopped, right? How do you want to stop this? We want to stop this through diplomatic means, right? Now, what does OO want, right? First, we want answers from God, right? Whether he proceeds or cancel the Armageddon doesn't matter by the end of the day, because what we are achieving for is we want to know why he acts, whether he proceeds or cancel the Armageddon. At least we are seeking the answers on why he does that, right? And second, after we got if we get the explanations, we are going to act accordingly. Due to our roles as angels designated for humanity, what we will do as angels is to act according to humanity's interest by acknowledging the powers that God has. Right? So we actively question the notion of God. Why he does this kind of things? We are and we are further questioning God's authority. Right? Several things that I'm going to talk about in my speeches. I'm going to talk about our role as angel. We are also going to talk about challenging the hierarchy of heaven and why is that a good thing. We're also going to talk about our mechanism, which is discourse, and why is that the best, and why is that a good thing. And the second is I'm going to talk about why being random and mysterious is inherently dangerous. Right? Now, first, let's talk about our role as angels. Right? So our role as angel is to protect humans, and and due to our role to protect human, we have this sense of relatability towards humans, right? Because we've been protecting humans since the time of Adam, since the time of Adam and Eve, the time of Noah, the time of Abraham, the time of Jesus, and so on and so forth, right? We recognize the good and bad things that humanity has because we've been around in Earth for a long time, right? We have a better understanding towards what humanity is, right? Because we live alongside, we have been living alongside of them. It is safe to say that we are able to act for them as the representatives in heaven, right? And this is important because humans do not possess this kind of power that we have. It is very unlikely for humans to have that representative in heaven, right? Because humans simply do not possess this power. Because the heavens has a very strict barrier to entry, right? That only we are able to enter, right? And second is I'm going to talk about why we need to do this in diplomatic means, right? Let's talk about God, right? Even though we believe that he is cruel, that he is tyrant, by the end of the day, he is the one who created us. He has the power to stop us whenever he wants, right? This is why we want to seek justice for humanity through diplomatic means, because we do not want to injure God, right? And even right. So this is why we need to seek this justice through diplomatic means, right? So next is I'm going to talk about the challenging the hierarchy of heaven and why is that good things, right? Let's talk about the status quo right now, right? The status quo right now is God powers is unchallenged in the status quo, right? Currently, there is no mechanism of checks and balances in the heavens, right? Let's just say that our current heaven system lacks a legislative system, right? And so the closest thing that we have to to a system of representatives is angels, right? Due to our side and we believe that due to our time spent alongside human, we say that we are able to relate to them to relate to them that any other beings in heavens can't, right? Why it needs to be challenged? Why it needs to be challenged? Because God acts according to His own will, right? He has a lack of advisor. The fact that the Armageddon is going to happen shows that is going to happen shows that He is cruel, right? Because most likely the Armageddon is going to happen in violent means, right? Through natural disaster, through social disasters, and so on and so forth, according to God's will, right? The fact that even God wants it to happen proves that He is cruel, He is a tyrant, therefore needs to be challenged, right? Let's talk about and let's talk about checks and balances, right? Why do we champion these ideas, right? See, checks and balances is something that we learn from humanity through living by them, through learning their system, right? We have systems of musyawarah in rural communities, right? We also have the separation of powers in the bigger scene of in the bigger scenes, in the bigger scene and the grander scene of things, right? It is natural that we want these things because we've lived alongside humans for a long time, right? It is only natural for us angels to see them as a good thing and to pick those as a good thing, and this is why we want them in the heavens, right? Why do we need to question God, right? Because it is going to be because by just pushing God to either proceed or stop the Armageddon is going to be counterproductive, because God has all the power of all the things that is happening in the world, right? By the end of the day, He has the power to either stop carry on and stop the Armageddon, right? What do we have under our side of the house? At least under our side of the house, we are actively seeking explanations on why he is doing he is doing or he is doing or not doing certain things, right? Well, so what do we want under our side of the house? We want discourse, right? We want to be able to open the discussion. We want to expand the decision making process, the process, right? By at least having already voiced our thoughts, our concern. At the very least, we are attempting to question God. We've attempted to seek explanation of God, right? Why is that important? Because at the very least, God have heard us. He has considered us. Even if that fails, we say that it is still okay, because at least we are acting on behalf of humanity, right? And next, why is being random and mysterious is a bad way, right? Because you acting mysterious, you acting without reasoning. It's just the same as Donald Trump acting the way he is in the United States, right? Because logically you cannot just create. It is just very cool to create or destroy something just for the sake of creating and destroying. Right? It is fundamentally dangerous. It proves that in the current status quo, God doesn't care about his actions. He doesn't care about the worlds that he built. He doesn't care about human being. Right? So we say that seeking discourse is the most productive way, because at least we are actively seeking explanations, and whether or not the explanation happens or not, which we believe will happen under our side of the house, at the very end of the day, it is still okay, because at the very end of the day we are still acting on behalf of humanity, right? We are and this is and for all these reasons we are very proud to oppose.
All right, thank you for the speech. Now, to continue the cases from government bench, let's call the Deputy Prime Minister here.
Am I audible? There is a background noise like ning, but am I audible?
Loud and clear.
Okay then. Okay. Oh my god. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. We think that debate about being able to create change is significantly less important than talking about what makes sense, what choice that makes sense as an individual angel for you to take. Yeah. But if the government team, the opposition team is going to challenge us and talks about structural changes inside the heaven hierarchy, we're more than willing to engage to that. So we think, as our stance is clear, if Armageddon happens to succeed, we're fine with humanity as it is. But if it leads to dystopia, we're also willing to help humanity go through it, because we know that they have the fighting spirit to survive all the shits that happens in the world, whether it's genocide, whether it's famine, whether it's crisis. That's why we're willing to fight. But even if we fail and we die and humanity die, at least we make a statement that is true to ourselves, that relates to what we want to protect as an angel. That's why we're fine with any kind of outcome. Now, first, let's engage directly to the structural changes inside heaven itself, right? We think what the government team doesn't understand is that the structure inside heaven hierarchy is not a democracy. It's not like a democracy where we can contact God. We think this is like Men in Black, right? You don't know who God is or whether he wants to even bother come down and talk to you directly. The only actors that you can affect is the other angels, whether they are the same rank as you or they're the archangel in itself that is very high in ranking. So we agree that democracy that we want is we want democracy, but the kind of democracy that will happen in government side is God will give wahyu, and then angels will be the one to discuss whether we let this happen or not. We think this is more realistic, that because we think you cannot check and balance God by diplomacy directly to God, but at least God only have the initial call. Even God cannot make sure whether Armageddon will be successful or fail. He can only make executive decision, and the one who who can decide whether this executive decision happens or not are other angels, which unfortunately in the status quo does not have any fear or does not have any incentive to challenge God, right? So how are we going to influence this angel? We use the sense of relatability, right? We think that diplomacy talks about soft power, but we think you can be vocal but radically vocal. What are we going to say to the other angel? We're going to create a sense of relatability. We told the angel who was stationed to protect the prehistoric era, which was ended by meteor, are you okay with all of those dinosaurs that you love so much to be ended by God? This is the same grievance that I feel as you are, and therefore I think that you can relate to me, right? You see an existence that matters in dinosaurs, and me too. We're going to hit that sense of relatability, because we think the way that hierarchy works is that all the angels are stationed to protect a certain creation, whether it's planets, whether it's bacteria, whether it's human or whatever. That is the sense of relatability that is realistic to touch, and the only way you can touch that relatability is by continuing the precedence of a dissenting voice. We will continue what Lucifer has done. We will continue the other angels that has been thrown to earth. We will continue the idea of deities that's been thrown as a worldly deity like Zeus or whatever, because those are the kind of dissenting voices that creates a pergolakan inside the hierarchy, right? Those are the kind of voices that create depths inside the angels to question whether all the executive decision will always lead to good thing or not, because unfortunately it is not. If it's true that God have the capability to make all the good things, then why the hell did he create Hitler? It means that he can only create initial decision, but he cannot control the outcome. The only one who can control the outcome is angels, and we think the only way you can appeal to the angels is by having by being radically vocal against God inside the discussion in itself, so that we can garner votes, we can garner more dissenting voices. Before I continue, yeah, please, POI.
If you think that you can go against God and if he gets angry, the last time someone did that, they became Lucifer. Would you deal with that kind of heartbreak of having to torture humans as punishment?
Lucifer didn't come to torture human. Lucifer comes to make us indulge in worldly pleasure. That's exactly what he did. The difference between us and Lucifer is that Lucifer does not have the balance that we have, because Lucifer only strives about human selfishness, on individual indulgence. But what we love is human's culture in its entirety. Lucifer doesn't care about music. He cares about people doing like lust and all the 7 deadly sins, right? The deadly sins. It means that Lucifer cares about power, but he doesn't necessarily care about humans' well-being. So the same thing that we have with Lucifer is we have that power to still to maintain our voice and to show that God is actually able to be to have an opposition. That's the same thing, but the different thing is that we're going to do it for humans' betterment. That is what the main difference is. And I think that you already said we're fine with being thrown to earth, right? But second of all, let's talk about our life as a lower rank deity, right? There's an opportunity cost if we decide not to fight back. Why? Because we were stationed to guide human, to make them better, to make sure that all the innovation and life, they can reach utmost happiness, right? Armageddon happened not because human was bad, but simply God decides to do so, right? There is no correlation there. And therefore, the moment that you don't try to help human, all of that guidance that you have accumulated for centuries are going to be gone. All of that effort are not going to be appreciated at all. This world is full of hatred, and I'm in grievance every day. And I cannot make sure that human will live happily, that my loved ones is going to live happily. And even sometimes I want to die, right? Because I want to escape all the hate in this world, and I don't like seeing my people suffering. I cannot ensure Africa people are going to be able to eat. But still, despite all the bad things that happens in earth, I still want my loved ones to live. I will give everything in my power to make my mom happy, my boyfriend happy, the people that I love happy, my community happy. That is exactly the same concept this angel is relating to. It doesn't make sense for a deity that has tried so hard to help humans out of this despair, to tell them that living is worth it and living is okay, to make sure that they continue existing even in their darkest time, to suddenly be like, okay, then maybe them dying is something that is okay, maybe they will be happy eternally. It just doesn't make sense. So we think if the eternal regret that Dio brings matter, right? If Armageddon ended up bringing betterment to humanity, let's say they recreate a civilization, this is the humans that has no connection to you. This is not a humanity that is created from your success. You will lose that sense of love because apparently humans are just another replaceable product. They're an existence that doesn't matter. And you will live along the existential crisis. This is an apocalypse that you face in isolation. This is a town where only you are left to tell the story of. It doesn't matter if there's going to be a new, a successful democracy or whatever, but as long as you don't never try to stop that, you will always live with that eternal regret. We think that this is the same concept of humanity that the angel is relating to, because the angel, what does the angel see? The angel, what the angel has seen is the idea of creatures that is capable of love, the creatures that's capable of conflict, of resolution, and of creation. You see the beauty in mundane life, things like listening to music on a rainy Friday. So you see a creature that strives to survive even in the most despair and still look up to God and ask, is this worth it? So we don't want to take away that hope from human, and we think that structural changes is possible, but it's not mutually exclusive with still championing your idea to want the Armageddon to stop. We're very proud to propose.
Thank you for the speech. Now, to continue the cases from OO, let's call the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
It might sound a bit noisy because there is a azan sadly. Alhamdulillah, there is azan. So, yeah, we are talking about religion and challenging God. Okay, I will start my speech in three, two, one. We agree to all moral obligations of the angel coming from the opening governments and our responsibility toward the human being that having the capacity to love, to destruct, and to make conflict and to make peace, and there's the resilience in this way. But we as a closing as an opening oppositions believe that complicit levels will be even higher in their side when we are trying to prevent Armageddon without understanding the reason first why the Armageddon is always come first. Because like we already know, the popular belief, if you need to act according to your knowledge, act according to your research, not act bluntly because of your emotions. We don't want those kind of things to be happening because we believe that angel at the very first place is a noble and divine creature that having even more cognitive capacity rather than only emotional capacity. Therefore, one huge clarifications coming from the opposition to opening governments. The opening government seems to trying to argue that we can stop the Armageddon by influencing another angel in the hierarchy of heavens, while actually in our context, like that hierarchy of heavens that consists of that consists of angel, is believing in God and not believing in you. Therefore, in our current status quo, we are facing this by ourselves. Therefore, all those points of talking about influencing other people will not happen, but happens better in our side. Because in our side, we would like to create discourse and check and balances that I will explain later after my rebuttals. Therefore, the first big rebuttals coming from the opposition toward governments. The government seems to believe that if the Armageddon is already prevented or the Armageddon is already there, they will most probably willing to help the humanity to reach its peak again at the end of the day. We say, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot help the humanity to regain their fame, to regain their status anymore. Why so? Because the human will ask you as an angel why the Armageddon happens, and your only answer to this is, oh, my God is mysterious. You're doing something based on the random things. Therefore, you lose almost all of your population, and only 1% survive. On how we questions on how human will most probably going to believe you in this. In comparison, in our side, if the Armageddon is prevented and we're able to challenge to challenge God and saying the Armageddon should stop, most probably the human will celebrate our decisions because we can explain it to them. But if the Armageddon is there and wipe out half of the populations of human being, we can explain to them the structural problems that they need to change and lead the human being into betterment because we have knowledge. There is a net benefit that is really exclusive in opposition case. Therefore, the opening governments cannot win the debate. But lastly,
POI.
before that, yes.
We think that your benefit relies on whether God care enough to be transparent or not. But we have engaged in the moment that God is still not transparent. We don't have to break the hard news to human because exactly we don't want to say that God is mysterious. We don't agree with God as an angel.
Yeah, and then all the humanity is gone, and you cannot protect the loved ones. Therefore, I don't think it is a benefit to you that you should not break the informations because that's the core issues of our current situations. If it is not a utopic work on how religion is very, very manipulative because we don't have any kind of check and balances, and the one that can interpret a certain kind of holy Bible is a certain kind of community, not the other community. We highly regret those kind of conditions. But we are operating under the circumstances of uncertain benefit with a certain harm. Therefore, it is the uncertain benefit coming from the idea of it is going to be irreversible. On how so? Because of two things. The first one, in the worst case scenario, all humanities will die if you fail. But if you succeed anyway, most probably you will be exiled from the earth and replaced by the obedient angel. Therefore, any kind of mysterious act and random act coming from God will affect the human being again. Therefore, the loved one that you need to protect will not going to be protected, and even more in the dangerous ways because there's an obedient angel that never question anything. While it is a certain harm, but we think it is really proportional. How so? Because in a best case scenario, most probably God will clarify things and we can explain to our humans. But secondly, even if in the worst case scenario, the Armageddon might be happens, we already warned the hierarchy of heavens. Therefore, there is a realization in the hierarchy of heavens. All the angel that believe in God will trying to question the same things. We are going to be the martyr. We are going to be the kickstart of being exiled. It's fine, but at the very first place, every single things that God will do will be questions. Therefore, it is really good in our current status quo. Because at the end of the day, if you're not questioning and not understanding this, you're even more complicit as an angel. How so? Because you are a divine creature, you know something wrong and only try to stop it without seeking the truth. You're like a parent that lock their kid inside the house because you know there is a bully out there. You're not preparing them, you're not giving them understanding and not preparing them for future things. Why this is an interesting tipping point, panelists? Because both cases have a 50-50 chance. Thus, the question is, which sacrifices will matter the most? We as opening oppositions, by asking the questions, we would like to get the closure because we have the answer and the understanding upon the situation. But even more, we would like to having a check and balances that prevent the future harm that will exist. But lastly, talking about rejuvenating the long-lasting relationship between heaven and earth, because right now the hierarchy is already shifted. Most probably in our world will look like maybe we are not revealing the secret of the word, but we are going to appeal to something. Appeal if something wrong is happening. We would like to have more closure and desperation for the rest of our life, and it is still fine. Most probably we would not going to be the Lucifers because all the angels that already been realizing that our God is random is trying to help us. But even if we are going to be a Lucifers, we would like to go away from our situations. Therefore, it's still fine anyway. We as an anti-SJW club is more than proud to challenge the hierarchy of God.
Member of the government. Now to continue upon the fight against the Armageddons, let's call upon the member of opposition. Here.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Ooh, okay. I'll start my speech in
Uh,
Hello.
uh,
So
uh,
sorry. Can I
yeah.
restart?
Yes,
Okay, sorry.
please.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. As an angel, we still believe that God's end plan is something that is righteous, but the worst is only created when humans trigger it, right? We want to justify that being passive is okay and we don't have to meddle on anything. Unlike opening opposition, we think the heavenly hierarchy is an authoritarian good. God gave us life and so on, and they also hold the highest hierarchy. Therefore, we shouldn't meddle with that anymore. We think that in closing opposition, we think that God is like Brahmana, right? We basically where we make sure that the facilities go on, but we don't control the actions that is happening. If you have the Armageddon, most likely it means that because like humans trigger it themselves. As much as we love humans, we still have to believe that our job as an angel is only to give direction to achieve God's needs, right? That's why we need to help human as much as possible. But at the end of the day, if they do something bad, we still have to punish them, right? Example like the angel of death, and like if you're an angel who protects humans, you can only protect humans when it's good enough to earn and allowed by God instead of your own warning, right? We only give warnings but never take actions. We love humans, but let's face it, humans are very hard-headed and believe their own free will sometimes. So no matter like how much for instance like how much we tell them something, most likely sometimes if they're not really religious, they will continue doing it because it's the good thing, right? And even though we try to save them by that time, we still think that there is no possibility, especially when we actively try to stop the Armageddon from them. Now, before I move on to substantive, two major rebuttals for the opening government and the closing government. The first one is for the opening government. Human, when they say that human die because of these angels not actively stopping them, and we don't want to stay and we because we don't save them, we feel regret, right? We don't think that these us as angels will feel regret, right? Because we watch humans die to hell almost every night, right? And also when we do bad things, we just like note them down instead of trying to stop it, right? And at the end of the day, if the Armageddon does happen, it ends all the end of it, right? That's why we restart. But however, when the Armageddon happens and we try to actively stop, we think that it's a reset for humans, but we don't continue, right? Why is that so? Because if we disobey the God's orders, most likely we're gonna be sent to hell and become a devil, right? So we think that even if like it's good for the humans at the end of the day, we still think that us as angels also has some priorities in order to stay in God's lane and keep our jobs, right? Now we think that on next rebuttal on the closing government, on they say of like the principle of salvation, and at the end of the day, everyone's gonna be safe, right? We think that what's happening in status quo right now is already enough, right? So we don't see why we need to actively stop when God never told us to stop this, right? Because at the end of the day, we still think that God is the rightest one. This can only save you. For instance, like even if the salvation does exist, we still think that the only humans that can be saved are the ones who are religious, and also not the people that are not trying to follow God's way, right? So at the end of the day, even if we save people from this Armageddon happening, we only save a little bit of people, right? So now we think that in terms of BOP, the government has, in order for government to win this debate, they have to explain will it succeed, right? Now, from both sides, we don't necessarily see how they explain it, right? Now, even if, for instance, fail, how would it change humanity? Because if you love humans so much with their service, you'll need a practicality in order to explain this, right? So we think that's it. So moving on to my substantive, but first clarifications. We think that God in Abrahamic religions heavily emphasize to what humans do despite everything. Brahma has to be passive to keep balance. If you make them either upset or sad, they will assume you as an angel to be an antichrist, right? Because let's face it, God is really jealous, which moves on to my first argument on the justification on why we shouldn't do this to protect humans, right? It is as if we're trying to stop the inevitable. For instance, when you stop your toxic boyfriend from breaking up with you, it's and like you know what to do, but like the fact that they continuously be toxic is something that you can't change, right? Because at the end of the day, humans has its own nature, and we're just trying to tell you, right? Now, let's take on the comparison, right? For instance, if we actively on their side, if they try to actively stop the Armageddon, we think that we break the rule from God, and by trying to actively stop it, right? And like what we've already done is very unjustified, right? Like even if it's not simple, we don't think like we can save the likelihood of these humans, because let's face it, humans are very complex and they have their own ways in order for them to like cope with things. So we think that this won't happen. What they're trying to save and what they're start the human likelihood will happen at the end of the day. Now, our explanation, our best case scenario is even if we do love humans so much, I'm sorry, we do love humans, but like, why don't we just let it happen? Let the world end. Give them another chance and reteach themselves, because at the very least, when they restart, at least we restart with them. Continue our job as an angel and not become like a devil at the end of the day, right? So we think that this is like a very important stance, because as us as an angel, we try to that none of the teens have explained, is we try to have to keep our jobs in order for us to continue loving humans and give them like good messengers, and also a good way to get closer to God, right? So next, on my second argument on like the practicality, we don't want to lose our jobs, because like the only alternative for us is to become a devil, right? Or to, like, if the opening government say like we go down to earth, right? And we can't necessarily get back to one's woman. Now, if we lose our jobs, what is going to happen, right? And why is this so bad? At the end of the day, we can't save humanity at all, right? It's a dead end. So unlike Jesus, when like he dies for everyone's sins, um, but at the end of the day, we become, for instance, like devils, right? And we become the person who triggers the sins of this humanity, right? And we actually don't want this to happen, right? And for instance, like this can like probably like fasten the ways to like Armageddon, right? But unlike Lucifer, maybe we're not that power hungry, maybe we just become like devils and so on, but at the end of the day, we still have bad intentions. We can only have bad intention, and also like to mislead the humanity, which is not what we want as angels, right? So now then, the comparison. The best case scenario on the government side is, okay, we remind humans, and also we actively try to stop this Armageddon to happen, but not necessarily, as what I explained, humans will change their behavior or do good things, right? Because like no matter how many times we try to stop it, and then we lose one angel because like we try to stop this from happening, the end of the world will still exist at the end of the day. And also we cannot like continue to guide this humanity at their own, right? And the worst case scenario is even worse, right? So when angels do lose their job and they don't even get to stop the Armageddon from happening, right? We think that when there's like more devils, there will be less messengers in order to do this, right? So you'll only be stuck with someone who's like an angel who's very passive and so on, and doesn't even want to help at the end of the day, right? You become someone who tortures human. Even if you don't torture humans, we still think that like, oh, I should have like, I know what I could have done, but I couldn't do it because I'm not an angel anymore, right? You cannot prevent the Armageddon, as what all teams have already explained, but you can buy that humans don't fall to these temptations, so that you as an angel can fight evil spirits who fight with this, right? So on our best case scenario, we think that this will fly, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you for the debate. Now let's moving on to the last part of this debate. Let's call upon the opposition whip here.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
If there are any POIs, put them in chat. I will read them. No promises I will take them. Tidak mau kayak politikus yang PHP. Okay. Pengen doa dulu gue. Aduh Tuhan jangan marah ya gue speech kayak begini, ya ampun. Let me adjust the volume here. Okay, time. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Clarifications of what angels actually are. They're maintenance people. So God is the creator. I don't care if you believe that they have to be interactive with humans like Jesus is all of the time, or you believe in a Brahmana kind of version of God where he creates and then he just sits back and relaxes and keeps everything in balance. But angels in itself are maintenance people. They have greater spiritual abilities than humans. That's a given. Like they're really cool in the Bible descriptions, right? But they assist God. That's why even Raphael, Gabriel, and all of the archangels wait for God to actually give them orders before they go into humans and go through all of the do not be afraid kind of thing. That's why they need instructions to go against the legions of devils, even though the angels probably know they're right up front there, right? And they do not go into battle there. Why is this so? Because let's filter the issues. Number one, will God hear angels or not. This is to clarify whether or not it's feasible for the opening debate to claim that diplomatic or not, which I think diplomatic is a half stance coming from OO because it's still proactive, right? You have you have to know whether or not God will listen to angels. And God listens to angels in the form of listening to reports, but they do not listen to angels. But God does not listen to angels the way he listens to humans. We matter more because we're the children and angels are slaves. That's the thing, right? How do you know this? Even angels with good intentions, like Lucifer is not inherently evil before he became Lucifer. Luciel wanted for democracy. He wanted to have much power like God because he doesn't believe in authority, right? But then look at where he ended up, and he's bitter about that, and now he tortures humans, right? We don't want that to happen because in the very best case scenario, we are denominated to a very minor angel who only like writes stuff. We do not get to interact with humans anymore, and we love humans, right? We don't want that to happen. God will never hear us. But also on the point of checks and balances coming from both sides of the house, Frame and OO, by the way, it's not relevant, right? Because we don't believe that you necessarily need a check and balance because God is all-knowing. Just because God, by context line, doesn't have a very grand plan, doesn't mean he doesn't know everything, doesn't mean he doesn't already know what the angels want to talk about, he doesn't mean he doesn't know all of the evil doings and also good doings of human beings, right? So if God has a reason to let Armageddon happen, to let Antichrist have its short reign on earth, it probably means that humans need a reset because there's just too much evil going on, or humans have matured to the point where we can start all over again with a new creation and they have deserved a place in heaven or nirvana or whatever you want to call it. We don't believe that tampering with this is necessarily good. But in the case that you want humans to fight because they want salvation, we think this is still a noble cause and we want that on our side anyway. Humans can fight. And I think this is very important because this absolutely destroys the exclusivity that we have to fight single-handedly as a single angel in heaven, right? How? They pray, and God makes decisions based on those prayers as well. Think about the Bible verse where they say 2 or 3 people group and then God is there. Think about how Abraham single-handedly saved Lot. Think about how Moses single-handedly said that, God, do you really want to kill off Israel even though you already destroyed Egypt? And God went, actually, no, yeah, you're right. I'll just send them to 40 years in the desert. But exactly, when you detest God, when you question his wills and all of those things, that's when the punishment goes on. Think about how Aaron had a gold bull and worshiped that because he thought, I want to give closure to the people so they can still feel a presence of God. And that got them leprosy, right? Think about the 10 people from the Israelites who say, let's not fight, let's not listen to God because the people there are Nephilims, they're giants and we're scary, we want to protect you. And God punished the Israelites to 40 years in the desert. No one but Joshua and Caleb came into the promised land because of one incident, right? We think that this kind of punishment has permanence in it, which means that even if you want to say there is a complicit debate coming and opening and somewhat in the closing government, we say there is a direct harm, which is certain on our side. It's not just a matter of whether or not it's complicit or not, because Armageddon can still definitely happen, and there is only a 50-50 chance of us preventing it to some extent, but there is a definite suffering for human beings. Think about if God is bitter towards us, and God knows we like humans. Even if God loves humans, he will neglect them anyway. And now there is one less angel to fight for humans. We don't want them to happen, but humans can fight. And God is not as angry towards humans. When humans pray, they have enough knowledge and they know, and God already knows humans make mistakes, right? And that's why listening to humans is already there. It's enough for a counterbalance, right? You do not need us meddling and actively destroying everything in that past. The tipping point from all of my narrative right now is number one, the context that already engages with CG's points about, hey, they really need us exclusively, blah, 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 blah. And it also irrelevates the opening debate, right? About the specific point about they say that God's salvation is not enough. No, Jesus' salvation is eternal. That's what it says in the Bible. So if you do have faith, then you believe in that. You wouldn't believe that's not enough. I don't know why that's there. Let's talk about the impacts that is very heavily scenario based, right? The thing is, probably God already knows Armageddon is going on. It's just a matter of whether or not humans trigger what version of Armageddon. So if humans do A, you trigger an A version of Armageddon. If you do B, you trigger a B version of Armageddon, because we still believe in some sort of free will. Not all of it is predestination, right? When shit happens, and it will still happen, right? Let's look at the impacts for us. If we get demotivated, or we get demoted, or we become or we become devils, it means we have to actively see humans suffering. We cannot help them anymore. And this engages especially with OG, but also the points of love and mercy, right? Because if your actions actually are not productive enough to give love and mercy towards the humans, you do not do all of your roles to actually make them not fall into temptation, to actually protect them from evil spirits that are around us, but we cannot see them mostly. Like you are actually neglecting your role as an angel, and that in and of itself is not mercy. You're not doing what you're supposed to do to love the humans as a loving angel, if that's the characterization you want to buy as a judge. But on our side of the house, you understand that you have limited amount of knowledge. Humans have limited amount of knowledge. So whatever happens is within God's will. And if you bring the Armageddon narrative, it means that we already engage with the probabilities of success, right? Because it proves that you are complicit in the destruction, and this is a prerequisite towards all of the benefits coming from government side of the house. And we already gave you why there is a direct harm, so we already win on a negative case as well. That's why I'm very proud to close the whole debate.